At time with Jordan. Is this mic on? The mic is live. Alright, we are ready to go. Footy talk. Alright. On the radio, let's talk footy. Yes, this is AI. Keen to get started. Pump those ratings up high. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Alrighty guys, welcome back to another episode of Airtime with Jordan. I'm your host Jordan Fasso, and we're continuing the season preview series today, going on with the Melbourne Demons Footy Club. And let's go through the year last year a little bit before we start, or just to start off, and before I get into the ins and outs for the off-season, go through some of the expectations I have for them coming into the year, give some players to watch, and then give a little my projections on how I think they're going to end up going this year, and where I have them at the outset of the season. So with that being said, let's get into it. And last year was a bit of a tumultuous year for the club. Obviously went 11-12 on the season, finished 14th on the ladder, and it was a bit of a fall from grace for this club. They did a lot to get out of the position of being a bottom dwellers for a while, and they were contenders for a few years, but this was just a messy season last year on all fronts, and one that I think fans would probably want to forget. Attendances documented how far down they fell, and they weren't super high to begin with, and I think that was just really a reflection of the year that they had. There was this weird energy about this club starting in the off-season with, of course, the tumultuous off-season that Clayton Oliver had. I won't go into that too much, but the treatment of him was pretty brutal, I thought, at the time, and I think they completely mismanaged that. They showed poor leadership off the field in that regard, and they were basically threatening him in the media, saying if you don't do this, then we're going to trade you, and all that sort of just could have, with all the things that he was dealing with at the time, just should have been handled behind the scenes. I think they dealt with that just horribly, treated him quite bad, and hanging him out to dry a bit was not the route. I definitely would not have taken that route for someone who's going through some troubles at the time, and not to mention it's just the grade of the club, and to see they just didn't seem very supportive of him. And then that was sort of the exact same mentality they took into that Petrarca incident. I think that they were both parties were completely on different wavelengths throughout that whole thing. They were trying to push him to come back at some point, and he was just having no part of that. And I think we sort of spoke enough about the mismanagement of that Petrarca incident last year, but so I won't harp on it too much. But all those two things happened with their two best players, and that's on the back of Angus Brayshaw being medically retired as well in the previous off season. So it was just an absolute season from hell from the Demons. For the Demons, and I think that everyone is glad that season is over, especially just general footy fans. I think everyone's sort of sick of everything playing out in the media. Some of the media personalities like Gary Lyon and stuff sort of wearing their Melbourne jerseys in the media wasn't very productive at times, I didn't think, and I think let's just leave that in 2024 now and focus on the footy coming into this year. And with that being said, let's get into the ins and outs for this team. In the off-season, they had Tom Campbell come across as a delisted free agent from the Saints. Jai Culley is a supplemental selection period guy, of course, coming across from West Coast. He was a mid-season draftee a few years ago. Jack Henderson, Aiden Johnson they took in the draft. Harvey Langford was the 6th overall pick. Xavier Lindsay was the 11th pick. Ricky Mentha Jr. Harry Sharp came across in the trade as well. So they're all the ins. Interested to see who plays a big role this year. Maybe some of their younger draftees will. Jai Culley apparently has been quite good on the track as well. So, there might be a few guys that to play a role this year. The outs, big list of outs for them. Notable players, of course, Angus Brayshaw starting us off. Who sort of already missed out last year, but Ben Brown added to that list. Kaya Farris White was delisted. Lockie Hunter retired. Alex Neil-Bullen traded to Adelaide. Josh Shackey delisted, former number 2 pick. Joel Smith delisted, of course, another lovely off-field debacle for the D's last year that they're going to leave in the past, and Adam Tomlinson as well delisted. So a lot of names there, big names delisted or retired there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for the D's this year. And let's go into some of the expectations I have for them. And I think that some people may think that, last year with all the shit that happened off field was a bit of an aberration, but I think unfortunately it may be the status quo for the Demons this year. I don't think I find it hard to believe that just the radio silence in the off season has healed all the scars that they've had from last year, and the fact that they have two of their best players, and treated what happened with their two best players last year and the way it happened. I think that it sort of became a point of no return for me, like what happened to those guys and how they were treated. And I think that I still think that Petrarca and Oliver are both professional enough, good enough to get back to near their best. And I definitely want to clarify that, but I just don't know if this club has the heart and soul sort of buy-in anymore that you need to be successful. You have Cozzy Pickett with 1.5 feet out the door, and the team has always had a weird energy about it at the best of times. So you bring in, your two absolute stars back who are sort of probably questioning their loyalty to the club. You got Cozzy Pickett out the door, and then, as I said, at the best of times it was a weird vibe. Stephen May, going back to when Stephen May was punching one of his teammates, who was that? Melksham, that's his name. So yeah, if you recall that situation, it's been an odd group. There's been odd dynamics, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into the vibes of it all, but something just feels a bit off when I think about Melbourne. And they've won their premiership. They're all a year older again, and as good as he's been, Max Gawn needs to decline at some point, and I fear like this maybe is the year for Gawny. He has been the number one ruck for so long, and is absolutely one of the greatest the ruckman that the game has ever seen. And you could honestly argue that he is the greatest ruck that the game has seen. So, like, it's nothing to discredit him, but at age 34 this year, I think that the end eventually comes, right? Like, surely a 34-year-old ruckman who's 210 centimeters has had pretty good luck with his body. I think he's had a few niggles over the last couple of years, but it's still very old for a ruckman of that size. And I did a bit of digging, and the last sort of ruck that was playing at this level at that age was Aaron Sandilands. He made an All-Australian team at 32. I guess you can trust Gawny's body a little bit more than Big Sandy, but 34 is just old for a guy that's 210 centimetres, as I said. So I'd be a little bit concerned at that being the case for him dropping off. And then I will have to say, though, that I think that Melbourne have done a better job of bringing in young talent while they've been, quote-unquote contending for the last few years than some other teams may have. They brought in Caleb Windsor last year. He looks like a keeper. Trent Rivers, obviously, an absolute gun. Judd McAvee, really good player too. Tom Sparrow as well. And then, they've added another 2 first-rounders this year. So I think that they at least have some decent talent coming through the pipeline, but I just don't think that necessarily helps a team with the top-end talent and with the ambitions to win games this year. I've sort of spoken a little bit last year about teams operating on 2 timelines, and I don't believe that ever really works. I think you have to go all in on one or the other, and I'm not suggesting that Melbourne are necessarily trying to do that, but if they're truly trying to contend, I would have thought they'd be, packaging those picks up in an instant for, a Dan Houston or some other established star of the competition when they had the chance to do it. And yeah, maybe their off-field issues sort of limited what they could do in that regard. It seems like Dan Houston cooled on them based on those things. So yeah, they can say there's no issues as much as they want, but it ultimately costed them Dan Houston from going there, who would have been an absolute, absolutely enormous for this team coming into this 2025 season, because now you have a group of young guys who aren't going to be able to contribute to winning the same way that like some seasoned vets would, and how the seasoned vets that are there, they want to win games. So I don't necessarily think those young guys are going to be ready to do that. And I think like on field, the midfield's going to be pretty solid, assuming that Oliver and Petrarca get back to their best. Viney's always rock solid. He's a year older, though, we'll say. Trent Rivers took on a larger role last year and looked great in that role. And I think that Melbourne fans was probably tipping him to be the next sort of leader of the club, and he looks unbelievable. And of course Gawn as well. Like he's going to be I don't when I say he's going to drop off, I think he's still going to be a great ruckman, but I don't know if he's going to be like all Australian quality, which has held. He set the high watermark for himself for a long time now. So him falling off might lead to a bit of a demise in the midfield for Melbourne. And just a matter of seeing how many contests he gets to around the ground for them, because he's always been such a good connector for their back half to forward half and taking those big contested marks on the wing. So, yeah, I just want to see how his body holds up and if he can still get to those contests, I guess, is my main concern. And, yeah, for Melbourne, that's sort of what I was really leading into. It has always been the forward line and the mid-forward connection that's been their issue, and there's the forward line is just not really improved yet again. Like, it's failed them year after year, and apart from Bailey Fritsch and Cozzy Pickett when he's up and about, like who else is really standing up in this forward line? Especially unless Christian Petrarca's resting down there or something like that. But Jacob Van Rooyen hasn't really ever been very consistent. I think he's a little bit overrated. Harry Petty the same, although it seems like he's going to play in defence this year. Disco Turner showed some signs at times, which is promising for sure, and I do quite like him as a player. And honestly, he might end up being their best key forward by the end of the year, if you don't class Bailey Fritsch in that category, of course. But that's sort of like, the fact that I could see that happening for them is probably not the greatest result as a team that's trying to contend. And then they also lost Alex Neil-Bullen in the off-season, who was absolutely massive for them as one of their premier sort of high half forwards who, brought the pressure all the time, was capable of playing defensive roles on people, coming into the midfield at times, and also kicking goals. So, yeah, I just worry how this team is going to compete with the best of the best, and the answer for me is I don't think they're going to be able to. I just don't think they're going to be able to kick winning scores against the best teams, let alone bad teams. And genuinely, I think that they're probably a bottom three forward line in the league this year. If you go through all the teams, I'd say North Melbourne's forward line's better than them. I'd say West Coast forward line is better than them. They're better than Richmond's forward line. I'll give them that. But it's pretty dire for the D's in that end of the field, I think. And their back line has always been sort of their saving grace and what they can hang their hat on. And they still should be solid there this year with, of course, Stevie May and Jake Lever and Salem being stalwarts back here. But even then, Stephen May is 33 this year, going into his age 33 season. So, there's always a little bit of a concern there. I don't think you have to worry too much. I think that the back line will be pretty solid again, barring any injuries. But, that's every team. But, yeah, just looking at the list, you're really relying on a group of players like Billings, Bowie, Cade Chandler, Howes, Langdon, Sparrow to provide, as much as I don't mind those guys, but when there's a big chunk of them that need to contribute and provide real value, I just don't know if they're going to be capable to bridge the gap between the top end stars on the list and the younger guys that they're coming through. And yeah, I think a combination of relying on that group of guys that I sort of spoke about, plus the likes of, Gawn, May, Viney potentially being a year older and falling off a little bit, doesn't exactly fill me with confidence that they'll be any better than last year. And as I said, if you're getting a drop off in your top end talent, the guys in the middle aren't really driving winning or anything like that, and then the next group of guys are probably a little bit too young to be contributing to a finals level team, then that's not really the formula that you want to be starting the season out with, in my opinion. And that's exclude. Those are just all sort of facts that I think might end up, well, not facts, but things that I think might end up happening, and that's before you even account for the weird vibes that go around this group. And I think there's definitely a chance that I'm too low on the D's this year, but that's just how I see it, and I think that they could be in for a pretty average year based on the general expectations that some might have for them. And yeah, I think that there's a little bit of cause for concern there for the D's, unfortunately. And yeah, I think there's, in the players to watch segment, there's obviously there's the young draftees, Caleb Windsor, who I could mention, who showed some signs last year for sure. Trent Rivers, wondering if he could take his game to a new level as well this year, potentially. He obviously has a bit more help with consistently playing with Clayton and Petrarca this year, who hopefully are back to their best. And then if you add in Trent Rivers to the mix, their midfield is going to be really good, I think, again. But yeah, I think the main player that I want to watch this year is not necessarily an up-and-coming guy, more of an established player, but Cozzy Pickett. He has absolutely absolutely has moments of brilliance and the ability to take over matches, but with one foot out the door, I do wonder about his commitment to the team this year a bit. He's already in the off-season been liking posts on Instagram. It's a bit tabloidy of me, but about going back to WA online, and I don't know, maybe he's just shit stirring, but I just don't think that sets a really good mindset at all. I think we need to get to a place with the AFL where you're willing to say that you're leaving at the end of the year and just play out the year at your best, and have all this hiding behind doors and hiding the closet about where you're going to play next year. I don't know. It feels a bit weird, and yeah, that's just an off-field thing. But his tackling dropped last year a bit as well, which obviously can be a bit of a motivation-related stat, and given that he was used more than ever in the midfield last year, it's even more concerning heading into this year, with it seeming like he may not be fully invested anyway, based on some of the stuff he's been doing online. So, and some of the rumours about him, well, not even rumours, they're just very strong sentiment that he's heading west. So, I think I just worry because they rely heavily on him forward of the ball, and when I already had questions about the general buy-in of this team, he could be another one that sort of contributes to that and falls into that category. And I hope I'm wrong for Melbourne's sake, but yeah, something to watch for me. And yeah, you can probably tell I'll give my sort of projections here, but pretty low on the Ds coming into this year. I think that they're going to have a pretty disappointing year despite some of the stars that they've got on their list. And yeah, that's why I've got them 15th in my power rankings heading into the year, and I think that they're going to end up 15th as well after going through the fixtures. So yeah, not very high on the Ds coming into this season, unfortunately, Ds fans. And yeah, I think I will, a lot of the time I will play devil's advocate with myself and say but I can see this happening or whatever. But yeah, in this situation, I feel pretty strongly that they're not going to be very good this year, and obviously willing to be wrong. Don't expect every prediction that I make to be right, and yeah, I think that this is one that I'm pretty confident in, unfortunately for D's fans. So anyway, we'll see it play out first, but yeah, it's just something seems off to me about this group, unfortunately. So yeah, let's see how they go. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. I'll be back again with the next season preview, whoever that ends up being. So yeah, stay tuned.